Some of my favorite tips for getting into whiskey: pairing cigars with whiskey, and even a new trick that involves cigar and whiskey that I had never even heard of. What's up, guys? My name is Chris, and you are listening to the Whiskey Noobs podcast, and today we have an awesome interview with Adam from Dreamer Cigars. If you've never heard of Dreamer Cigars, think Whiskey Noobs, but for cigars instead of whiskey. Adam and I run in very parallel paths, him in the world of cigars, me in the world of whiskey, and so I took this opportunity to sit down with him, teach him some of my favorite tricks for drinking whiskey, talk about the parallels that those tricks have with cigars, and then of course we talked about pairings. We talked about some different tricks that involve whiskey and cigars. I don't need to talk you through all the summary because you're about to listen to the whole interview. It was an awesome interview, and I think there's a lot of information to be gained and a lot of good tricks that you can do while you're tasting whiskey and or smoking cigars. So without further ado, let's cut to that interview with Adam from Dreamer Cigars. All right, you've got your cigar going. You're about ready to do some pairings here. So I am here with Adam from Dreamer Cigars. Adam, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited to get into this. We are going to be tasting 3 different whiskeys, and for you, it's going to be a pairing, which is actually, I think, going to add a little bit of a fun element to it. What type of cigar are you smoking? And kind of just give the general tasting notes of it to somebody who drinks whiskey, spicy, mellow, those sort of things.
Sure. I'm smoking the Aganorsa Leaf Rare Leaf. I would say it's probably on a little bit of the heavier side. Out of this, you're going to get a lot of notes of like kind of leathery, maybe a little dark chocolate in there, nuttiness. It's more of an approachable, heavier cigar. So I think it'll pair well with, from my limited knowledge in the whiskey world, it'll pair well with some of the things that we've got today. So I'm excited to try it.
Yeah, for sure. And do you normally gravitate towards like that darker stuff, the slightly heavier?
It's for cigars for me, it's all over the place. It depends on the time of day. This is number 4 for me today, so it's been a long day at work. But no, I'm just kidding. On the bourbon side, I usually do tend to go a little heavier. Just now being introduced to Scotch and trying to get into that a little bit. It's taking a while, as I think it does for a lot of people, but yeah, I'm sure we'll get into that. But yeah, with cigars, I do like heavier cigars. As of lately, I've been tending towards lighter cigars. For me, it's kind of like beer. Like summertime, light cigars, wintertime, heavy cigars. It's kind of how I do it.
Okay, yeah, I totally am the same way with whiskey. It depends on the time of day, what's going on, my mood, all those, what I've eaten that day. I mean, there's a lot of parallels there. So what is your experience with whiskey then? I'm curious to hear. On a scale of occasional mixed drink to occasional neat glass to regular, neat glass of whiskey, where would you say you land?
So I'm escalating quite quickly, and I think it's because of my cigar palate. Like 2 years ago, I did not like whiskey. Well, I didn't not like it. I was a 100% mixed drinker. Mm-hmm. And the more and more that I got into cigars, the more that I was willing to try in the whiskey world. And then it just became more and more normal to have something just on the rocks. And then now I probably have a whiskey. I am on the rocks guy. I do neat every once in a while, but I'm typically a big rock kind of guy. That's where I would say I land, but probably at least once every like 2 days I'll end dinner with a nice cigar and whiskey.
Okay, nice. Do you have a favorite so far in terms of whiskey?
Cool. It's funny that you mention it because I've got my producer for my podcast and a lot of what we do. He's a very big whiskey collector, very big. And I've tried a lot of different things from him, and I like a lot. The new Blackened, I like that. From what was that band?
This is Blackened Metallica. I think.
Metallica, yeah. Because they came out with a cigar with Drew Estate, so it kind of made sense for me to try it.
Okay.
There's a Blackened cigar, but yeah, they did the whole thing together, so it was kind of cool. But
yeah.
I got married about a year ago, and I had Blanton's the day before my wedding, and I think it's still the best. And I
Okay.
don't know. I talk about this on my own channel a lot with cigars. I don't know if it was because of the moment, because of the experience, or
Yep.
if it was because of the whiskey itself. Because my one of my favorite cigars of all time is an Opus X, which is, if you know cigars, it's an extraordinarily rare, high end cigar. But it was also on Christmas Day with my parents, who like live in 7 hours from me, and I hadn't seen them in a while. So like, it's like it's the same sort of situation for me. I'm like, I need to have it again outside of a extraordinary experience and just me on my back patio or something, and experience it in that way.
Yeah, I have that exact same story basically, but with the Van Winkles. I don't know if you've heard of like Pappy Van Winkle,
Yep.
but
Mm-hmm.
on my honeymoon, we were at this bar and they had the 10-year-old Rip Van Winkle, and so I got a glass of it. And people always ask, what's the best that you've ever had? And I'm like, I think I have to say that, I'm
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
It
on
was
my
the best
honeymoon.
experience overall, which is fun.
Exactly, exactly. Yep. So that's good to hear. So I think I have an idea of where you're probably going to land with this tasting. But being that you're getting into Scotch, I think this will be a fun tasting as well. And I'll get into why exactly that is as we get into these whiskeys a little bit. And so this episode really is going to be one of my favorite tips for getting into whiskey. Especially a lot of people, I'm sure you see this with cigars all the time. They say, it tastes good. I don't mind it, but it doesn't taste like anything. I'm not getting anything from it. And so I actually stole this tip from when I was into cigars. So a little background for you. I was into cigars when I was 18, and it was legal to get cigars at 18 at the time.
Yep.
And I enjoyed cigars, but I live in Ohio. It's freezing for like more than half of the year.
I'm from
So
Cincinnati, so I understand.
okay, exactly. So it's tough. And I was into cigars, and then when I got to 21, I'm like, well, whiskey, similar idea. You're doing a tasting, but you can do it indoors, and you don't need like nice air filters and stuff. Still lived at my parents at the time, so that was how I got into whiskey. But I once upon a time was having that same issue with cigars, tasting anything. And I found out that people say, compare them side by side and see what the difference is. And so what I did was I got an Oliva, Connecticut, and I forget what the second one was. It might have been like a Camacho, the Maduro, whichever, the red label. I forget
Yeah, yeah, sure, the heavier one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was something like that. And I tried them. I tried the Connecticut first and then the heavier one second. And I was like, wow, that works. And it turns out it works really well with whiskey too. And so that's one of my favorite things to do for a newer person is have them try stuff side by side. So that's the background of why we're doing this. And I will mention a few other tips here in a minute that people can do if they are just getting into whiskey, because as I'm sure you know, there's like a progression. There's like I can't even enjoy a cigar or a glass of whiskey because it's just too much. And then there's I can enjoy it, but it doesn't really taste like anything. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's okay, it tastes good. This cigar tastes like this cigar, and this cigar tastes like this cigar, but neither of them taste like leather and wood and all that. And then there's actually pulling the notes, which is kind of like the last part.
Yeah.
So I have kind of tips for that whole progression. But I do want to give you the stage for a moment. People who haven't heard of you before, who are just tuning in, and are a lot of my listeners, they drink whiskey. They probably want to pair with cigars. So what exactly is Dreamer Cigars? Just kind of break that down for us.
Yeah, so Dreamer Cigars, I started about 2.5 years ago, out of accident. I was in real estate, flipping houses, trying to be like the HGTV guy of Instagram, and of course it didn't work because that's an extremely competitive game on social media. But I was always into cigars, and my now wife, she was like, "You should try to review a cigar on TikTok or something." And at the time, I hated TikTok. I was like, "I'm not doing it, whatever." Blah blah blah. As always, wives are right. So I tried it, and my first post hit 10,000 views, and I was like, "What just
Wow.
happened?" So I bought 20 cigars on my way home, and I said, "I'm going to try this, see what happens." 3 months later, I had a random video hit 1.2 million views, and I hit 50K followers, and I was like, "All right, this is real. This is real now." And then um, after that, we really kind of decided to niche down into, and TikTok kind of did that on its own, being a younger audience, and a lot of people were asking very simple cigar questions. And so we branded as a Cigar 101 cigar education company for beginners specifically. Started posting across all platforms and partnering with a lot of brands to do educational things. Like we have a cigar beginner's guide that we wrote with one of the industry legends. Very simple guide that's in a lot of shops nationwide now. So it's something that we've done. Where today I was just editing a cigar pairing course, so it kind of this makes sense.
Yeah.
So I hope I was doing the right thing in there. But we were partnering with a guy that did wine school and owns his own winery, so he knows a lot of what he's talking about when it comes to pairings. But yeah, recently, and it's funny because January 1st is always the day where you set your goals and you feel like, new world, whatever. This year for us, that's exactly what happened. Last year we totaled like a little bit under like 9 million views. So this year I was like, let's hit 10. This is my goal, whatever. We were in January 1st, we hit 8.6 million views because of YouTube. Shorts just blew up for us out of
Nice.
nowhere. We had like 2,000 subscribers. It wasn't, it's tough to get there. It took us a year and a half to get there, as you know.
Oh yeah.
But now, like today, we're sitting at 176,000 subscribers. Got this fun thing right behind me to prove for it, and we just hit 130 million views for the year, and things have been just freaking rolling, rolling since then. So, yeah, our main thing is cigar education for beginners, but we're trying to do a lot more. I'm glad you reached out because we're trying to do a lot more things like this to take it to the next level. We've done about every piece of Cigar 101 content you could ever imagine. So now we're looking for what's the next level, and this is exactly where I want to go. Help people. Now you know everything about the cigar. Let's get into what do you drink with it, what do you eat with it, a lot of different things like that. So yeah, that's Dreamer Cigars in a nutshell.
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic, man. Congratulations on that on YouTube. That's nothing small right there.
I would love to say I did something specific, but it's consistency, as you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. People always want to know the secret, and it's consistency, a little bit of luck, and keep on going forward, I suppose.
Yeah, and you never know what platform it's going to hit on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have over 100K on Instagram. I'm sitting at 3,000. How it doesn't transfer? People ask all the time. They're like, "What the heck? Like, how do you have here and here?" I'm like, dude, it's a lot of just hitting the algorithm at the right time, and even a lot of the YouTube people, they didn't come from TikTok. Like right now we have 110,000 on TikTok, and I'm like, no, there's barely any overlap, if any. And so yeah, it's definitely strokes of luck and hitting it at the right time, but also staying consistent and giving to the people, right?
Yep.
When you reached out, I had seen your page every once in a while before, but when I dove into your content, we do a lot of the same stuff. We're just in two different worlds. It's provide value for the people, and eventually it'll spread.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it, like you said, we really come from the same cloth from two different niches. I mean,
yep.
The cigar noobs and the whiskey noobs. It's kind of the same idea.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, and it's a great opportunity with the media that we have nowadays to be able to provide people just the basic answers to things that get so twisted in movies and in pop culture and all those sorts of things. So
agreed.
Yeah. So I'm glad to be working with you, man, and that's awesome to hear about you already, with those goals. That's pretty great. And hopefully we'll learn a thing or two about whiskey today. I don't have a cigar with me because I can't smoke indoors. I do this in my basement. My whole house would smell like cigars, but
yeah, I understand.
But I will
built a little lounge off the back of my house, so this is pretty nice.
Yeah, that's super nice. I would like to have a cigar room at some point, especially given the temperature issue that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, 100%.
So, without further ado, I will let you taste some whiskey, I promise. So, you've got 3 whiskeys in front of you. We're going to start with the lightest so we don't burn your palate out right away. So, Redbreast 12 Year is where we're going to begin. Now, Redbreast 12 year, this is an Irish whiskey, single pot still, which means it's made with malted and unmalted barley. And it's a very light, sweet drink. So I think maybe the cigar will, one of two things is going to happen here. Either the cigar is going to steamroll over the whiskey, which happens, or the whiskey's going to complement it because it's on the opposite end of the spectrum. It's a little bit delicate, a little bit sweet.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what you think. This is almost like a double Connecticut. This is like the lightest of the light that I might have not the lightest of the light, but it's up there for what I have. So go ahead and get yourself a nose. Take your time with it.
That is really light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anything jump out of the glass at you? I know that, it's a lot different than cigar notes, but
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, off the bat, I did do a interview on my page with a bourbon guy not too long ago. So I was like, I'm getting up there, right? I'm taking my baby steps. I'm learning.
For sure.
My brother's a big bourbon guy, so.
Yeah, I am. I need to get back into the cigars. It's kind of gone to the wayside since I've tried to focus in on whiskey, but I want to get back into it. And ironically, I just recorded an episode where people asked, "Are you ever going to do pairings with cigars on your podcast?" And I was like, "Funny that you ask that." So.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this is probably the most approachable whiskey I've ever tasted.
That's a great way of putting it. It's fully approachable. It is nice and sweet and light. You're probably going to notice a little bit of honey. Irish whiskey always gives me almost like a granola type flavor to it.
Maybe the granola is where I was thinking in my head, but couldn't pinpoint it.
Yeah. That could definitely be. That's probably that malted and unmalted barley. Mostly the malted barley is going to give you that kind of granola, almost like sugar cookie type of taste, type of smell and taste.
Yeah, and again, maybe it is the cigar. I feel like there's a hint. It's not like a smokiness that you would get from like just a heavily peated Scotch or anything. It's like a hint of smokiness, but again, maybe it's from the cigar that's already on my palate. But it's a very smooth smokiness that I'm getting.
Yeah, it could be a little bit of interaction with that cigar. Also, Redbreast, I think we're gonna get more and more oaky as we go. But Redbreast it is aged, I believe, in sherry casks and in American oak casks. So it's gonna have a little bit of that oakiness to it, and then you'll have a little bit of that sherry kind of light, almost fruity bitterness.
I can see that.
Yeah, so Redbreast is one of my favorites, especially for beginners if they're in that slightly higher price range. This runs about $65, I believe, in Ohio. Mm-hmm. But I think it's so approachable, so easy to try, and more importantly, it's going to be fun to compare to what we do next because it is, like I said, we're going to go from very light to slightly darker to the fullest body. So we're really working our way from light to full body here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. I did see that there was a Irish whiskey, a bourbon, and a Scotch, and I was like, that's good. This is what I wanted to do, so I'm excited.
Yes. Yeah, you're going on a little tour here of all the main kinds. And I'm excited for you to try the Scotch. So we won't get into it quite yet, but it is Auchentoshan American Oak. And the reason that I wanted to send you this is because going from Irish whiskey to bourbon, we do want to stop at Scotch, but specifically this Scotch it's aged in American oak, and it always reminds me of almost a bourbon-y type Scotch. Of course, it's not made with the same ingredients in the beginning, but that American oak really gives it a little bit of the oaky spice, a little bit of the char to it. It livens it up a little bit. So I'm excited to see if anything is the middle of the road between Redbreast and Maker's Mark 46. It's probably going to be the Auchentoshan.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So there's something that I like to do. Some whiskey people scoff at it, but I like it. So like a smoker will smoke, your whiskey.
Yeah.
I've got a little left here.
Oh.
If you smoke it with the cigar smoke, it does dramatically change the taste, just like a smoker does. And it's very easy to do. I know you don't have video right now, but if you end up cutting this up, if you tilt the glass and you let the smoke fall out of your mouth into the glass, it works perfectly, and then it blends, and then it's a brand new spirit.
That is interesting. I can honestly say I've never done that before, so I'm interested to see how it changes it for you. Especially Redbreast, it's kind of a clean slate to do that with.
So you can see that smoke settles with that whiskey. Blow it out, give it a little, whirl, let it breathe.
Yeah.
Brought that smokiness right out for sure.
Yeah. How about that?
Yeah, probably eliminated a lot of that sweetness that was in it, but yeah, that was it. Any smoky hint that I was getting, it just blew up.
Nice. That's very interesting. I can't believe I've never even thought to do that. I'm gonna have to try that at some point.
Yeah, I had a buddy show it to me, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm stealing that and doing it forever."
Yeah. Yeah. I think you'll find I don't scoff at much here. I usually just find it interesting. So so no worries there.
Yeah, I think that's it's the way we need to approach it, right? And that's why I was excited to have you on the people that I had on mine was a little bit of a, little, I don't want to call them snooty, because they're approachable guys, but the way they approach whiskey is very, very, very focused. And
yeah,
you don't do certain things, and you do certain things. And I was like, nah, just, isn't it fun? Isn't it supposed to be fun? Like, try this. And they're like, I would never do that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no wrong way to do it. I like to approach it with an open mind, just because you never know what's going to be like. Wow, I like that seems like it would be dramatically different, and that's like cool. Like, why wouldn't you want to try it that way?
Yeah. Well, and you're the most interesting guy at every party after you do
it. Good point. Good point. Everyone's like, what is he doing over there with his glass?
Yeah. They're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, first impression of the Redbreast 12-year, how would you say it was alone, and how would you say it was with the cigar?
I really liked it. I even poured just a little bit back in because I really want my wife to try it. She is not whiskey. She does not like it, not at all. But I really, and it was I'm glad that we did this one, because it really is, in my opinion, a very, very good introductory whiskey. It's one of the most approachable whiskeys I've ever seen, and I'm intrigued to see what she thinks and where she goes in her mind, and if she's like, okay, now I can see it, right? I think it's a great way to get into it. Even just like a Connecticut cigar, again, using my language in my world, it's you're able to appreciate it even though you're not a beginner as well.
Yes.
Right? It still has enough complexity, enough flavor to it, and to be enjoyed.
Yep. Sometimes there's a value in that simplicity and not having something challenge your palate,
Yeah, which is exactly why right now I'm into the lighter cigars.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'm glad you enjoyed that. We will get to our next cigar, but I do want to pause here for people listening who are like, okay, I just drank Redbreast or something very approachable, and that's still too harsh for me. A couple of things, and I think I'm going to put a twist on this. I didn't plan this, so if you don't have a response for me, that's fine. I'm going to put a little twist on this. If whiskey burns far too much for you, if you take a sip of it and it's like, I'm not tasting anything, it just burns. A good tip that I like to do is I like to say you can mix the whiskey with something like 7-Up is my favorite, maybe ginger ale. I try to avoid Coke. That's got too much flavor, but you can do it. And slowly do less and less and less mixer. And this could be over the course of a week. This could be over the course of months. It depends on the individual's palate, how fast they move. And eventually you get to this point where you're tasting more of the whiskey than you're tasting of the mixer. And then people start to say, oh, I get it now. I get that whiskey flavor. And usually they can at least jump to like a cocktail or an old fashioned. But if not, just jump straight to whiskey. I don't know if there is a parallel for cigars, but what is your number one, if you have one off the cuff, number one tip for somebody who says a cigar is just too harsh, I can't do it. I take one puff and it lights my whole nasal cavity up.
So they're actually there. I mean, there's I guess you could call it the mixed drink of cigars. I'm sure you've heard of acid cigars before.
Oh yeah.
Most people have. It's a very, very, very big and very popular cigar. And they're for anybody that out there that listening that doesn't know what acid cigars is it's basically a sugar coated cigar. It's a little bit more complex than that, but essentially the wrapper of the cigar, the outer leaf where 90% of the taste comes from, is infused with a little bit of sugar. So it really, you can compare it to some of the heavier sugary acid cigars. You can compare it to smoking Smarties in middle school. Like it's not harsh. That's how my wife got into cigars. Like she smokes regular cigars with me now, but the first one that she ever was willing to try was one of those. She was like, oh my gosh, she did that for like 2 years. Never pushed her into anything. And then there are medium ranges. You talked about like the ginger ale. So there's sugar tipped cigars. So in the entire wrapper is not infused with sugar. It's just on the tip. So you get that right away, but eventually your saliva and everything on the tip of the cigar is going to wear down that sugar. And by the end of the cigar, you're smoking a regular cigar.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a great middle ground there.
Yeah, that's literally like, I mean, like you said, smoking down the cigar. It's literally like mixing less and less over the course of like one night, though, rather than over the course.
Yeah,
how about
exactly.
that? What's the? I'm gonna show my ignorance here. What's the green wrapper?
Candela.
Candela. That's the first cigar my wife ever took a puff of and actually said it was good. It was the Candela Acid Blondie, the Candela version.
Oh, okay. It wasn't acid though. Oh, yeah.
Yes, it wasn't acid.
Like, the first cigar she tried was a green one that looks like it's not like fermented.
Yeah.
Like, if it was an acid, that makes sense.
No, yeah, it was the Blondie. I got like a variety pack of the Blondies. I do enjoy those for like a quick smoke. The acid is really good, especially when you just want to just enjoy the flavor of it and not think about it too much.
Yeah,
but
it's a great introductory cigar, and if you are into cigars and you like that, there's actually a national ban trying to be passed on flavored cigars. So go Google it, and you can vote online to not, or you can like sign a petition to get that not happening, because it's pretty heavy. I was talking to a guy from Drew State the other day, and he was like, yeah, we're focusing a lot of our marketing on non-flavored cigars right now because you never know. So
jeez,
maybe
good to
the
know.
acids won't exist, at some point.
Jeez, that's a shame. That's probably like half of what I smoke is flavor. I usually kind of alternate.
Yeah,
that's a shame. Imagine if they did that with flavored whiskey. It's like, why is that even? We won't get started on that.
Yeah,
but.
we don't need to go down that road. We could be here for hours.
Yeah. So if somebody's able to taste a cigar, taste their whiskey, it doesn't light them up entirely. I like to then move to something like an old fashioned if you're still not to neat whiskey, or if you're to neat whiskey, then you can either do it neat, you can do it with ice. Either way, honestly, I find that falls like almost 50-50. Who prefers neat, who prefers ice when they're getting into it. And then another tip that I actually have is if you can drink neat whiskey, but it still burns a little bit too much. If you try, I don't know if there's a parallel for this for cigars. If you take like a barrel proof strong whiskey and you take a sip of it, and then you have whatever whiskey it is that you're actually trying to taste, the shock of that more difficult whiskey actually makes this one a little bit easier to taste. I wasn't sure if it'd work. I did it on an episode with a guest, and it actually worked.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I don't think I have a parallel with cigars. I guess you could do like smoke a double Ajero heavy, cigar, and then go smoke an acid, but that would be such a different contrast to me. It's like, do you like steak or chicken? And I'm like, well,
yeah,
I don't know, both. I don't know, different.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the difference with cigars, I guess. With whiskey you've got light and dark, but you've also got two dark whiskeys that one's just stronger than the other, and not quite the same because you don't, have a
Yeah,
proof of a cigar.
I agree for sure.
But all right, I will allow you to move on to the Akintoshin and quit talking your ear off about that. But I think that's
You're good.
fun for people who might be listening and trying to get into cigars as well.
Definitely. Glad to help.
Yeah. So we're moving into Akintoshin American Oak. So like I said, this is a Scotch. This is a single malt, which means it's made entirely with malted barley, all at one distillery. Actually, single malt also means that it is made in a pot still. So just like that Redbreast was made in a pot still, so is this Akintoshin. It allows a little bit more of that flavor to stay behind. Typically, it strips less flavor from the whiskey. This is matured in first and second fill bourbon casks. So you're gonna see prominent bourbon notes in it, I think. And hopefully you'll be able to see that bourbon-esque flavor, but with the single malt backdrop that it has. So I'm interested to see what you think.
Yeah, as you were saying it is when I took the sip and I was like, yep, 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 yep.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Again, I think out of the Scotch world, this is one of the most approachable Scotches I've had. So you picked a good selection.
I'm glad to hear that. That was my goal, So it should be pretty approachable. Only 40% alcohol by volume, which is the minimum for Scotch. Fairly approachable, but it ventures a little bit into that spice of the bourbon, which I think will go pretty well with your cigar. I don't know how, like I said, I haven't had the cigar you're smoking, so I don't know how much it might steamroll those flavors. But feel free, if you're whatever you're tasting, go ahead and just let me know.
Yeah, no, I think I'm getting like hints of caramel.
Yeah.
Again, it's just tossing it out there.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's hints of caramel. It's definitely, like you said, got that oakiness. There's no doubt about that. That's what I got right away.
Yeah.
But as I took my first sip, I was expecting that kind of what people compare to like gasoline burn that Scotch has, and this does not have any of that. So I feel like it is as approachable as bourbon in that sense of as to where like it doesn't have that bite that a lot of Scotch may have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if I'm on the point or not, but
oh yeah. as I'm sure you know, there are no wrong answers really, but no, you're onto it. That caramel. The Scotches are gonna be, the single malts are gonna be usually pretty forward with like a caramel, a honey, something like that. And then a lot of times with a single malt that's heavily sherried, not what you're drinking here, heavily sherried, you're going to have this kind of bitterness that rests on your tongue, probably what you're referring to as that gasoline. And that's probably why this comes across a little bit more approachable, because it's not heavily sherried. It's first and second fill bourbon casks. So it's got a little bit of that almost brown sugar spice oakiness to it that a lot of bourbons have. And that will make it more approachable for those who really don't like that overly sherried flavor that some Scotches do have. Like think of your run-of-the-mill Macallans. Those are usually sherried, those sorts of things.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the cigar is actually calming it down even more, which is surprising. I didn't see that coming. I thought I was going to bring that oak out, but it seems to be mellowing it out, if that's a word.
Yeah.
But yeah, that surprised me. But maybe it's because they're so complementary, as it's just kind of joining in together, and the cigar flavor is maybe more approachable to my palate and what it's used to, and maybe it's coming out in the Scotch.
Yeah, that could very well be. You actually just made me think. Maybe something that I'll have to do with a noob is see if having a cigar could make a whiskey more approachable. That would be an interesting one, because you kind of have the cigar smoke on your palate. Maybe it cuts back some of the burn of the whiskey. I think that'd be a fun thing to try.
I think if they're a cigar guy already, I think that would be my first piece of advice.
Yeah.
And say like just it at least, and that's kind of what I did unintentionally, right? Like I said, I was not a big whiskey or bourbon guy. I did enter in the old fashioned game.
Yeah.
I ran marketing for a cigar lounge here in Atlanta, and as I was doing that, we came out with pairing night, and then I got to try a lot of different things, but I was always kind of like, we should do another old fashioned pairing, and
Yeah.
I was always kind of headed that direction. But the more that I tried whiskey and kind of introduced my palate to it, the more that I would have a cigar, and then every once in a while I'd be like, I I actually want a whiskey right now. Like I can see like it's connecting out of that, the memory, the guy that I'm doing this cigar pairing course with, like he is very, very knowledgeable guy, but a lot of what he talks about is everything we do is off of memory. I mean, you get home and you say, "What do I want for dinner?" You're sifting through your files of your brain and all the meals you've ever eaten and figuring out what you want because of your memory. And that's the same with what we do here. And that's now every time I have like a bourbon or a scotch or anything, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have to have a cigar later because now it's just like it. I can smell a bourbon and I'll know exactly what scotch I want
Yeah.
or what cigar. Sorry, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes
I'll sniff it and I'll be like, yep, that's the cigar I want. It's a memory thing, and then it pairs well. And it's crazy how, people make pairings so complex, but I think it's simpler than people think because it's your memory.
Mhm.
It's your individual palate. Go off of your memory. If you're a cigar guy, maybe smell the whiskey first so you can pick the right cigar with it. Or if you're a whiskey guy, maybe you don't want to go around sniffing cigars in a lounge. But well, you can't sniff the whiskey either, so it makes sense. But maybe if you pick a cigar, take it out of the cellophane, of course, and then smell it and be like, oh, you know what? Some Eagle Rare, sounds great right now.
Yep.
And if it sounds great, it's because your memory is triggering that thought. So yeah,
Yep.
little tidbit of what I know in this world, but that's about it.
No, you're totally right. I mean, you don't want to overthink it. You don't just try something, and if it sucks, it sucks, but then and then you think, okay, next time I'll try it this way. And I always tell people you gotta, try to pick one or the other might steamroll each other. So I like to pick which one I want to be on the front lines. If I want a punchier bourbon with a lighter cigar, that cigar is going to get steamrolled a bit. But I either want, I want some similarities so I can see it between the two, and I want some differences so that it's not just the same thing on my palate constantly. It's one of those things, like you said, you don't need to overthink it. Once you do it a few times, you're like, oh, I think this is what I want with it. It just sounds good based on what I'm smelling right now.
And 90% of the time, you're going to be right.
Yes, exactly. All right. So
I just smoked it. Sorry, I didn't want to.
Yes. No, go ahead.
I just smoked it. That oak became so strong. It's so funny how like the pairing made it seem a little lighter, and then once I smoked it, it was oakiness and smokiness all day. Just like a little bit of like your normal scotch that you may think of.
Yeah.
That was a big change. That was funny.
Wow. I'm sure there's somebody out there who could tell me chemically what's going on there. I don't know. I just know that it's fun. That's all that matters to me.
Yeah, agreed. And that's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for me.
So we will move on here to the Maker's Mark number 46. Now, Maker's 46 is different from normal Maker's Mark. Some people, when I post about it, get a little confused about that, and they're not big fans of it. So let me show all three the full-size bottles here. I do have them. So first you had this Redbreast, the pot still, and so that's Redbreast 12-year. Then you had Auchentoshan American Oak, which is this one. And now you're about to have Maker's Mark number 46, which this episode is technically the Maker's Mark 46 review, so I will be reviewing it with you.
Hell yeah.
And it is very enjoyable. I like it way more than normal Maker's Mark, personally speaking. But what makes it so special is they take normal Maker's Mark that they would normally bottle up and sell, and then they finish it with French oak staves that they sear. So they take these French oak staves, and they actually, you can find this online, I believe, like a photo of it. They got this, like, they're all like, I don't want to say tied together, fixed together, and they sit down in the barrels for a certain amount of time. It's not very long, but I don't remember it off the top of my head.
I'm going to show my lack of knowledge here. A stave, is that like the sliver of wood?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So they take these slivers of wood, They have a very specific. I actually did the tour of Maker's Mark, and they explain it. And they have a very specific way that they sear these staves to get just the right amount of char on them, and then they age it in a normal barrel with those staves in it, and that gives it a pretty unique profile that I think you're about to experience. Now, for those listening, who maybe this is still seeming a little harsh to you, maybe you've waited until the Maker's 46 in order to join in on this tasting. Something that I like to tell people who are newer to whiskey, and you can try this on this glass if you'd like, is to do a warm-up before you get into the actual review. And
Okay.
since this is I don't want to say the harshest, this is definitely the punchiest one that we're going to be tasting, it's probably a good idea to do a warm-up. So what I like to do is first I'm going to focus on the nose. And of course, you can always observe the color of it. I usually skip that because people don't have any trouble observing the color. They have trouble tasting it. So
Yeah. Oh, it's darker brown.
yeah, exactly. So I like to focus on the nose, see what kind of notes that I can pull out of the nose. That's the first step.
Wow. Yeah, you can tell off the nose. If you get too far in there, that'll start to get you.
Yes. And on the nose, that's actually a great point. If you're to where it's burning, you might want to back up just a little bit, and then you'll get right to that point where it's not quite burning, and that'll be a little bit easier to smell. Also, if you open your mouth, it doesn't look the coolest. It doesn't look like it does in the movies, but it does allow it to move through your nasal cavity a little bit better. So on Maker's 46, I typically get like a vanilla with almost a punch of cinnamon and a little bit of black pepper. You're gonna see pretty, I don't want to say drastic, but a pretty big change from the Scotch that we had.
Yeah, I think that cinnamon, I was not able to point it out until you said it. The vanilla I can see. It's almost like right away you get the vanilla, and then the spice, I think, maybe is what the cinnamon and the black pepper that you were mentioning kind of overtakes that, for me at least.
No, you're right on the spot for compared to what I'm smelling. Now it doesn't have to be the same, but that's typically what I get from it. You're right on there. And so this is our warm up. So I like to do that nose because this gives people something to look for when they're tasting it. And then we're still in the warm up phase here, especially if you're newer to whiskey and especially if you've got a punchier whiskey. I always do a sacrificial sip. So this first sip is not to pull out the most complex, nuanced notes in the whiskey. This is to coat my palate. It's to let it sit on my tongue for a few seconds. Actually, letting it sit on your tongue dilutes it a little bit and it burns less. People always try to gulp it because they're used to taking shots. Letting it sit on your tongue dilutes it a little bit. Let it coat my palate fully. And then when I go take that second sip, my palate's not going to be so much in shock. Now, you've already done 2 tastings, so your palate might not be in shock, but we can just walk through it because this is my normal warm-up for a tasting.
Perfect. I got a ton of caramel in that one.
Yes. And so that's what I do during the sacrificial sip. We're not getting nuanced here, but what like jumps out and grabs you? Because then when you go into the second sip, then you can see that and see what else you're getting. So yeah, go ahead. So caramel.
No, yeah, it was. I mean, the caramel, and it was a lot more. And probably, like you said, maybe it's because I just let it kind of just fall down the sides of my mouth and really hit, the side of the palate where that sweetness is. At least that's what I'm pretty positive is true.
Mm-hmm.
I got a ton of sweetness out of that.
Yes. You're gonna, with the oak and the corn of the bourbon, so these have all been malted barley and unmalted barley in the redbreast, but with the corn's gonna let that spice of the barrel come through, but it also provides kind of a sweet backdrop for these other flavors to come through of the barrel. So it's like this sweet, I actually had a podcast with some guys, and they, the armchair whiskey, they always said it's almost like a cotton candy to them. They drink a lot of Scotch and Canadian whiskey. And I thought, well, it doesn't remind me of cotton candy, but I get it. It's like a sweetness with that brown sugar, that cinnamon, those heavier notes. So now that our palate's accustomed to it, let's go ahead and let's take a real sip and see what we can pull from it. Don't feel too pressured to swallow it right away. Let it sit on your tongue. I always do a little bit of like a chew, just like you do with cigars. I believe you chew the smoke as well.
Yeah. Wow. That is delicious.
I'm
That
glad you
is
think that.
so good. That is really good.
I had a feeling this was going to be your favorite when you said dark cigar. I was like, you're probably going to like this 46 then, most
This is
likely.
really good. I'm still getting a ton of that sweetness. Again, you said cotton candy. I don't know if it's necessarily that where I'm like, but that is delicious.
Yeah. Yeah, you get that upfront sweetness, and I do have the notes that Maker's Mark says you should get to compare to. I always like to do that at the end of
Mm-hmm.
my tasting. But you get a lot of that sweetness. You get a lot of that oak. It's kind of like a vanilla sweetness for me, and then it moves into like a caramel, and then that pepper hits you at the end. Is where you're getting like the spice, the pepper, a little bit of cinnamon.
Yeah,
It kind of takes over, but it's not overly harsh. This is only, let's see, 47%. So quick math, that's 94 proof. So not too bad, not too harsh,
yeah,
but you are getting some of that spiciness with it. So
that is delicious.
I always
That's
like.
all. I
I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it. And I'm excited to see with this. So this has, this is aged in brand new charred oak barrels, just like all bourbons have to be. And then it's aged with those French oak staves. So once you smoke it, I'm interested to see how that interacts with the bourbon a little bit. So I will read through as you're doing that
Sure.
the notes that Maker's Mark says they get from it. And I always like to preface this that this doesn't mean if you're not getting this that you're wrong. Sometimes people's palates are just different, and sometimes distillers like to really dress up their notes to make it seem like it's more complex than it is. So there's a bunch of factors at play. But this is what they say. So they say on the nose, you'll get hints of toasty French oak, caramel, and baking spices. I would say that's pretty spot on. And then on the palate, they say mildly sweet and uniquely layered with rich notes of vanilla and baking spice. And then on the finish, they say velvety, subtle, and pleasantly long. Kind of vague on the finish.
Yeah.
But on the
I think
palate,
just
go ahead.
staying away from that bite. They're trying not to say it.
That's exactly where you'll see that. You'll see, oh, it finishes with what? Subtle and pleasantly long. So, why is it long? Because there's a lot going on. It's a little bitey, a little harsh.
Yeah.
But on the palate, I think they pretty much nailed it. Vanilla, that
Yeah.
sweetness up front, and then baking spice.
Yeah. The cigar is bringing out a little bit more of that, brand new oak barrel. So it's got, it does bring about a little bit of that harshness in it.
Mm-hmm.
But, and going a little bit more towards the cigar, it brings the cigar up a notch. Where I said, like, this is a stronger cigar kind of in, like nicotine content or is terms of like body, but it brings up the cigar a little bit more in terms of its own little pepper spice bite. So I would say out of all of these so far, this is the first one where the whiskey actually really influenced the cigar heavily.
Mm-hmm.
So not to say that the others didn't pair well. I think it did. I think the Redbreast may have been a little soft.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, there's definitely some Connecticut's that you can smoke with that. So it's definitely the fact that I was just smoking a darker, heavier bodied cigar.
Yeah.
But yeah, the one of the things in the cigar world that I've learned is in terms of pairings is there's three types of pairings that people like to talk about a lot. It's complementary, antagonistic, and then ultra. So like complementary pairing is the cigar makes the whiskey better, and then the whiskey makes the cigar better. Both are better.
Mm-hmm.
Both are. The antagonistic, everybody thinks it's negative, but it's not true. One overpowers the other, but it can create it can elevate one where the other stayed the same. Right? And I think that's like kind of what the Redbreast did. I don't think it overpowered the Redbreast where it was like, oh, this is terrible. Like it's the cigar. I can't even taste the Redbreast anymore. It's not even worth it. I think that was antagonistic in the sense that only the cigar changed. The whiskey kind of stayed the same to me. But with this one, and that's the last one is an ultra pairing, where the two together create a flavor that you weren't going to get out of either one by
Yeah.
itself. And that's really what I'm getting out of this is like, and that's why if you ever find an ultra pairing, and if you're exploring this, maybe listening to this with a cigar, because you saw cigars was in my name and you may have just decided to do it, you may find yourself switching back and forth a ton because you're trying to search for which one changed. The truth is they both did, and they're both creating something brand new. And you're like, you're trying to find it, but you can't find it because it's new. It's not in the whiskey, it's not in the cigar. It's like it's its own thing that's been created in your mouth off of the pairing. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a great summary there. I've actually never, I haven't gotten as much into pairings. I've never heard the three specific terms there. So that's very good to hear. And I'm glad that I stumbled upon that with the Maker's 46. That's really, it's good to see that they went well together. I had a feeling when you said the darker cigar, I thought, we got two different types of oak. We've got some of that tannin from the barrel. I think that can put up a fight against the cigar and not just get steamrolled. So
Definitely.
yeah.
Still delicious. This is one of the best whiskeys I've ever had for sure.
Well, that is great to hear. Not too terrible of a price tag either, so you might want to go snag yourself a bottle. Yeah.
Yeah, I may need to.
Yep. Maker's 46, fun fact, it was one of the first whiskeys that got me into whiskey. I had it recommended to me. I had like a little bit of money. This is, I'm still in college, so money's hard to come by. And
Exactly.
I was like, I want to get a nice bottle. So I asked somebody who I knew was into whiskey at the time, and he said, you got to get Maker's 46. And I was like, okay. And it's just so, it's welcoming enough with the sweetness, but punchy enough to keep you interested. And that's
Yeah.
really what you want,
I think it is a perfect whiskey for a guy where like I'm at where there's very few that I will say I enjoy drinking neat. I can,
Mm-hmm.
but in terms of like I'm gonna sit down and just like watch something or whatever, relax. I'm not gonna do it neat. I like mine on a big cube. I don't toss a bunch of little cubes. It doesn't get watered down terribly, but just brings a little bit of that bite out. I think a lot of people in the whiskey world do the drop of water or two or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's similar. I've actually never tried that. Maybe that's the next step for me into getting into neat. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think this is a good probably next phase for me to start saying, okay, well, I need to try and find ones like this that I can drink neat for me to start moving into drinking everything neat.
Right. Yeah, hey, there's no shame in drinking anything on the rocks either. What you just said is basically what I do with cigars. So I drink like all my whiskey neat. That's just my preference. It's also the easiest. I don't need to do anything to it. But like you just said, if I'm watching something, if I'm not just smoking a cigar or just pairing a cigar with whiskey, I'll typically do like an acid. I'll do something flavored. I love the Blondie Bellicoso, a little bit bigger. And just because it's sweet, it's easy to smoke, and it still tastes like tobacco.
Yeah.
And then when I'm really sitting down and I'm digging, usually if I get the night off, my wife goes out with her friends or something, that's when it's like, okay, I'm going to do this whiskey and I'm going to do this cigar. I'm going to try them side by side. I love the Oliva Serie V. That's like my go-to. It's a pretty typical go-to, I think, but it is like my go-to.
I had one right before this.
No way. I love it. That one, and slightly less common, I think. I've only had it twice, the Tatuaje 7th Capa Especial, if I'm hopefully remembering that name correctly.
I don't think I've had that exact one from Tatuaje, but Tatuaje makes some great ones.
Yeah.
My favorite from them is the Tattoo.
Okay. I have not had that one. So
they make a lot of different ones for sure.
Okay. Tatuaje would be Spanish for tattoo, so the tattoo. That's clever branding.
Oh,
there.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope I'm not wrong. I claim to be able to speak Spanish. I could totally be wrong there, but I believe it is. I believe.
Maybe. It makes sense. In the cigar world, they do a lot of that mixing. Like I don't know if you've ever seen, have you ever seen a Culebra cigar?
A Culebra? I don't think so.
So a Calabra cigar is three cigars in one, and they're intertwined.
Yes.
They're mixed up like that, but in three. And Calabra means snake in Spanish, which I did know when
Okay.
I did a review on one, and I decided to. You're supposed to take them all three apart, and it's three cigars.
Hmm.
But I decided for fun, I'm gonna try and smoke them all together and see
Okay.
what happens. And I literally half the cigar had the ash was intertwining with each other. It was so cool.
Yeah.
But I posted it, and everybody was like, half the comments on the entire post were, "This dude's an idiot. Calabra means snake in Spanish," and I was like, I knew that. I just didn't say it. The cigar is called a Calabra cigar. Like
Right.
I don't know what you're like. What? And everybody was like, "This dude's an idiot. This dude's an idiot." Now, I'm sure you've experienced this yourself. It's
Oh yeah.
the ones where you get the most hate. That like that video is at like 9 million views or something. So I appreciate all those comments.
Yep. Those do the best. And man, it's like some of the people that'll take a minute out of their day just to tell you that you're wrong or that you just didn't say something. I'll have
Yeah.
a video where like we just did here, I'll have a bourbon and I'll have a scotch and I'll say, 5 whiskeys in general. And people be like, actually, that one was a bourbon and that one was a scotch. And I'm like, those are types of whiskey. Like, I'm sorry I
Like,
didn't
come on,
say
yeah.
that in this video.
My still to this day my most popular video. It's at 25 million on YouTube.
Jeez.
I did the bite cut. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but there's on a cigar when you do a cut, right? You got your normal straight cut.
Yeah.
You got a V cut, and then you got a punch cut. But if you don't have a cutter, you can just very gently bite off the end.
Yep.
And it's not a chunk.
Right.
It's a very simple because there's just one small thin layer of tobacco on the top that's capping that cigar, and keeping that end intact. But
Yep.
I did the bite cut. I was doing an instruction like Cigar 101, like I always do. But I kind of spoke too long in the video, and I wanted to make it a minute or less so it could be a reel. And I cut it down, and I had to cut out the part where I spit out the part that I bit.
Yeah.
99% of the posts were, "This dude's gonna die tomorrow because he eats tobacco," and that's why that's my most popular video. I'm sure a lot of the views probably were like, "Oh my god, I've never seen that cut before," or like, "Known you could do that."
Yeah.
But also like, I mean, all the comments, every single one, like, "This dude's dead, he's gonna die," whatever, like, "Dude's sitting in his grave," all this sort of stuff. Like,
Oh my
dude, you're not
gosh.
supposed to eat it. You're supposed to spit it out. And I was like, I just cut that part of the video out. Like
Editing is a
exactly
thing.
what you're saying. But I am so thankful that I spoke too long in that video because 25 million views is pretty fun.
Yeah, it's the little things. It's the things that you don't expect. You misspeak, you say something wrong, and that's the reason the video goes viral, which is pretty crazy. That was a thing for a while, like that I saw on TikTok. I promise I didn't do it. I do mess things up sometimes, but that was a thing where people would purposefully mess up something like obvious just because they knew that the comment section was going to explode.
I think I know exactly why, because Gary Vee posted about it. And he said sometimes in his ads, like on Facebook, TikTok, all the above, he'll misspell a word.
No
on
way.
purpose. Yeah. Just to generate, comments and boost the algorithm, and it'll work. And I'm like, yeah. So I've never done it on purpose either, but it makes me it helps because, like, if I do screw up, I'm like, well, I'm gonna post it anyways and see if this one blows up. Like,
Yeah.
I sound like an idiot a little bit, but maybe that'll help it blow up a little bit. Help people,
And there's something to be said about just having the thick skin to do it and being like, you know what, whatever, whatever.
Anybody just like you, anybody that's done this game, they know.
Yeah.
Like, you just post it because eventually you stop giving a shit and you stop caring and you're just like, this is supposed to be real. This is supposed to be authentic. I've had a lot of different people reach out to me and be like, your video quality could be better. And I'm like, no, I film it on my phone on purpose.
Right.
Like, I want to be, cigars are intimidating enough.
Right.
I want to be known. I started as the guy, literally, I mean, the first year I was on my porch at my apartment complex in a camping chair. Like,
Jeez.
and I think that's why I succeeded, is because people were like, "Oh my God, normal people smoke cigars? I thought
Right.
this was for millionaires." And I'm like, "Hey, sorry, no, I had this like shitty old Lexus at the time from like 1998, and the back of like the ceiling was like coming ripping down, and I would do videos smoking cigars in there, and I'd be like, look, like this is my car, like this is what I do. And so I think a lot of it was the approachability, and I see the same thing in your content, which is definitely why I was happy to connect, because it's a lot of very, you look like just a regular dude in his basement trying whiskey. And
Yes.
that's I think that's why you've been very successful as well.
Well, I appreciate that, man, and I totally agree. I mean, I honestly, I'm sure you've seen them. There are channels with cigars and with whiskey. The guys are in suits. The guys are wearing the jewelry, and I actually enjoy a little bit of jewelry. I like a chain. I like a watch, something like that. But I thought about maybe I need to up my game. Maybe I need to cut all this off, and maybe I'm referencing my hair for those listening on the audio version. Maybe I need to cut all that off. Maybe I need to be clean cut, have a nice watch, have some rings. I do like rings, but I don't always wear them. But I was like, you know what? No, I'm wearing a t-shirt. I wear button downs sometimes because I like button downs. But you're right. There's already enough scary people in the industry. It's the same way
Right.
with whiskey.
Yeah, 100%. And it helps that we're both young. I don't know how
Mm-hmm.
old you are. I'm 26, so like it's it's a thing where the next generation, our generation, everybody is all about approachability, all about just being authentic. And I think that's why again, both of us have seen a lot of views and a lot of attraction, because it's authentic. It's not me trying to fake anything
Mm-hmm.
in that sense. It's I try and film my videos like I was talking to someone about cigars. That's
Right.
exactly how I try and film them. It's like, hey, dude, like, and I've actually heard people say that before. If you're trying to be more approachable, start your video with, hey, dude, and then start talking, or like, hey, Zach, or like whatever, like your brother's name is, to make you seem like more relaxed, and then just edit that part out.
That is clever. I'm going to try that. I've been making a conscious effort to try to do that because I used to be a little bit more robotic in front of the camera. I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
try that. That's
Well,
an
it takes a
interesting
lot of
tip.
time for sure.
Yeah, it does. Oh, cameras are awkward, man. Especially some of these episodes are solo podcasts, and that is just speaking into the void, man. Talking to a camera
Solo
by
podcast.
myself.
Yeah,
Yep.
I commend you for that one. I don't think I feel bad. I feel awkward enough doing like an hour long live where it's just me in the room, and I feel like I'm like talking to nobody, and on occasion like the views will go down, and then nobody's asking questions, and you're like, yeah, guys,
Right. Right.
maybe I should
Totally.
just end it now. I don't know. Yeah, so
Yep.
I definitely get it, but
Yep.
I,
Hey,
I appreciate you having me on today, man. This was great. It was definitely again another good step in my whiskey journey. So I appreciate it a lot.
hey, man, I appreciate you coming on. I'm so glad you like the Maker's 46. I always try to take a few shots to get something somebody's gonna like. I'm so glad you like it. Maybe that Akintoshin, if you have a lighter cigar, can get you into Scotch a little bit with a little less of that
I
bitterness
agree.
to it. I hope. And I
Def-
appreciate you coming on. I think this is going to be a fun one for folks to listen to because we've got tips for cigars. We've got, how to get into smoking cigars, how to get into drinking whiskey, combining the two, smoking the whiskey with a cigar. I mean, this has
oh, I
got it
haven't
all.
smoked this yet. I got a little left.
Okay, yes, let's do it. Let's see what it changes it to.
It's really easy with a Glencairn.
Good point. You got a small target and then it all just
Yeah,
flows down
it's
in there.
really easy with something like I got my water over here. Something like a normal like whiskey glass. It
Yeah.
is challenging. The goal is to make the smoke hit the liquid. So you really want to tilt it as much as possible, because it will stick to that liquid and sit down there.
Yeah.
That might have been a little extra smoke, but it's all right.
Hey, we'll see.
Definitely brings out that oakiness again, which smoking anything's going to do that.
Mhm.
Which what I really should do, and it would be cool. Like, you could do this video too. You can steal it. I have a smoker that I'm looking at. That's why I'm looking over here. I want to smoke a whiskey with the smoker and then smoke it with my cigar and then taste the difference. Because I don't think there's a difference. I really don't.
Good point. Well, hey, man, thank you for coming on. Thank you for trying this out. You know, this is the Whiskey Noobs motto, which you may or may not know, is what we did here today. And I always end my episodes with this. If you want to learn to drink, you've got to drink to learn. And that's what we did. And I like to think it's the same way with cigars.
Definitely. Yeah. If you don't smoke it, you won't know.
Exactly.
I don't have a clever thing like you do, but like we're just cigar education for beginners. That's
hey,
what we do.
Nothing wrong with that. It gets the point across, doesn't it?
I need a clever slogan though, for sure.
Yeah. Hey, well, thanks for coming on, man.
Yep, I appreciate it, Chris. Thank you, man.
Before you go, we do have some new expert noobs on the Patreon. These folks joined the expert noob tier of the Patreon page. They get a lot of really cool benefits, one of them being a shout out at the end of the episode. So Luke Carter, Jason Jackson, and Jorge Serrano, or George Serrano, I apologize not knowing which way to pronounce that. I want to thank you guys all from the bottom of my heart. I can't say it enough. It means so much for you to support the Whiskey Noobs page. The Patreon makes a huge difference. It's already funded so much that is going to help me bring you guys new and better content. So thank you guys for your support. I will leave you with learn to drink, drink to learn. Thank you guys for listening to another episode of Whiskey Noobs. If you need more Whiskey Noobs content in your life, make sure you check out our Patreon page in the show notes. And if you like the show, please make sure to leave a 5-star rating or review. It only takes a couple of minutes and they're way more helpful than people realize. If you want to do tastings alongside the show, make sure you join the email list by sending an email to whiskeynoobspodcast@gmail.com with a subject line that says email list. You'll receive monthly emails with a list of the whiskeys that will be featured throughout the month so that you can buy them ahead of time. You can also find more Whiskey Noobs content on Instagram at @whiskey_noobs and on TikTok at Whiskey Noobs Podcast. Once again, thank you guys for listening. The Whiskey Noobs Podcast does not support underage or otherwise irresponsible consumption of alcohol.